Hi there, and welcome to the session where we will talk about automatic accessibility testing. So who are we? My name is Pa11y. Next to me here is Wouter, my colleague. We both work at Finalist in the Netherlands. Today, we will talk a bit about why automated testing is a good idea. We will show some of the browser extensions and standalone tools that are available. Also, we'll be looking at some of the tools available to incorporate in your dev stack. And lastly, we'll be looking at monitoring tools to make sure that when development is done, things don't go haywire. I'm sorry, I forgot to click. So let's look at why accessibility. Before we dive into testing, let us quickly focus on why accessibility is something we should all incorporate in our daily work. Why you should care. Of course, you probably already know that it is required by European and most local laws, and that is for a good reason. A lot of people actually do have some sort of disability. Some examples include vision, complete blindness, or color blindness, hearing problems or deafness, or physical disabilities like not be able to use a mouse or a keyboard. So what we also see in average, people are getting older. And in the end, you care because you are just a nice person that cares about other people. It should be a standard for devs. And this may be challenging as lots of people are unfamiliar with disabilities. Automated testing helps to make it easier to put this caring into practice. And there are more and more tools to incorporate accessibility in your daily work. Further on, we will show some browser and dev tools that can help you testing your work. But first, let's explain a bit more why automated testing is important. So as I mentioned before, making sure your projects are accessible to people who are less able is now more important than ever. Automated testing early in the development process is essential to ensure this is the case. Unfortunately, automated testing is not the holy grail and is by no means a substitute for testing by a human. There are things automated tests won't pick up. You can only test about 20 to 30% of the WCAG rules with automated testing. So what are some examples of things we cannot test with automated tests? Keyboard-only navigations, like forms that are inaccessible or mouse-only interaction, but also keyboard traps where you can move the keyboard focus from an element. An example is key down in combination with the prevent default. Or tab order. Auto tests can determine if your tab order is correct. As with CSS, you can move stuff around and auto tests can't catch that. Contrast. Although auto testing can catch some contrast issues, it won't work with background images or transparency, for instance. And also readability of text. This is of course subjective and it varies with the subject of the site you're working on. Screen reader and auto test can't evaluate what a screen reader produces. And page zoom, what happens when you zoom in is not testable as well. Furthermore, there's also the visibility of focus elements and interaction issues. It's really hard to check interaction issues with video players or forms. So although it seems like a long list, there's plenty to test out there. So what is the stuff we can test? Well, we can test the correct use of headings and structure. And some contrast issues still are testable. A correct use of HTML and area attributes, for instance, titles autocomplete or headers and tables, are testable. Alternative texts, titles, descriptive links, so screen readers can make something useful out of it, are testable. And something really important, unique IDs are also testables. And things like a skip link on a page, if it is the first link on the page, is testable. So these are all things that are pretty annoying to test and nice to automate. And that is where the extensions come in. So probably the easiest way to quickly check the validity of a page is to use a browser extension. And I will now hand over to Wouter to show some of these extensions.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll start off with having a look at Wave, which is a tool called the Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool. And it's a tool from the WebAIM organization, which is a non-profit organization of the University of Utah. They provide some tools and training to make the web more accessible. Wave is a pretty cool extension. You can right-click anywhere on your page to activate it, and it has some on-screen indicators, so it's immediately clear where the issue is. It gives a clear description and a short explanation with a link to a more extensive explanation, and some instructions on how to fix the issue. It's available for Firefox and Chrome, and we'll have a look at it, and I'll try to give an online demo, which of course is very risky, but I'll try it anyway. You can see here I've already waved the page, but you can right-click and then do it again, and it starts to run. There it goes, and you see all the results on page. So you can see, well, the language is missing or it's invalid. There's some issue here with contrast. And if you click on, you can see the details and the reference. Or you can click on the icon. And you see here a reference to what the error means. And you can even click further and see a more extensive explanation of the error you're viewing. So that's Wave. Next up, Axe. Axe is an extension by DQ. It also lives in your inspector. DQ is an American company specialized in accessibility. They provide audits, training, tools, and are considered the industry leaders. We'll see the Axe application a couple more times in this presentation in various incarnations. This incarnation, we find it in the inspector, where you can analyze a page by clicking a button, and Axe will present you with a list of violations, and clicking one displays a summary containing the Axe path to the element, the source, and a possible solution. You can view the offending element in the inspector or highlight it on screen. It provides a link to the DQ University where you can learn more about the violation, and Axe is based on the Node.js library with the same name, and we'll have another look at that later on. And it's also available for Chrome and Edge. We'll also have a small look at this extension. Where's my mouse? Okay.
Okay. Got it?
Nope.
Saw something. Strange. Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Okay, here we are. As you can see, it lives in your inspector, so it's an extension which you download from, in this case, the Firefox website. But it's also available for Chrome, as I said earlier. You can click the Analyze button, and Axe will start analyzing your page. So we just have to wait a second, and then you can see all the violations on this page. You can click on one where you can see more information about it. You can see some issues about the info about the issue. You can click on a link to see more information on the DQ University website with an explanation why this is important to fix. Also, you can see the node in your inspector, as I said earlier, where you can inspect it. Oh, that's the inspector for. Okay, next up, Firefox. Firefox has a standard accessibility inspector. It's very developer-centric. You can generate a list of errors, as you can see on the screenshot. But you can also see all the elements, so you can inspect all the elements, even the ones that are not a violation. And once again, there's a link to external websites for a bit more explanation. One useful thing to note is that when you're using Firefox, you already have this, so there's no need for an extra download. Here you can see it also has a mode where you can see the various color blindness simulated, which is also a very nice extension of this tool. Okay, next up, Chrome. Chrome has also the inspector, but there's also the Lighthouse application, which is now included in Chrome, which is a more of a complete audit tool. You can also get a report on performance, best practices, CEO stuff, and also accessibility. This makes Lighthouse somewhat limited when it comes to accessibility, but for a quick evaluation of your page, it's sufficient. There's also the accessibility tab of the Chrome inspector, which is similar to Firefox's counterpart. Lighthouse and the inspector complement each other. Also try to have a look at the inspector for Chrome. Bear with me for a second. Of course, my mouse is gone again, which is really annoying. There it is. You can inspect the page. Here you can see Lighthouse. You can generate a report, which takes a while because it has to warm up for some reason. Okay, we're not going to do this right now. Okay. As you can see, the inspector of the Lighthouse didn't came through the robots because, well, it's a robot. But we can have a look at the let me see where it's hiding. Security application. What happened? It's gone. Ah, here it is. Here you can see, you can inspect an element, and then you can see in the accessibility tree what's going on with the element. So this is a bit more developer centric, as I already said for the Firefox extension. Well, it's nice to have because you already got it when you got Chrome. Okay, back to the presentation. Also, there's from the Pa11y project, there's this desktop application called Pa11y. Pa11y is an open source Node.js module, and we'll see Pa11y later on in this presentation. As a desktop application, the entry barrier is very low, which makes it perfect for managers, as it can generate various reports in various formats, and it's available for nearly every platform. Next up, tools you can use in your dev stack. We'll focus on the two Node.js applications, first of which is the X CLI. It's part of the X suite of application of the DQ organization. So it's the same as the extension we talked about a little back. You can incorporate it in your dev stack. So you can add it to a deploy hook, or you can use it with a task runner like Gulp or Grunt. And by default, you can use Chrome, but you can use a different browser with while using WebDriver. It's also possible to use X in your continuous integration suite, by having it exit with a code 1. And if you like, which is a nice feature if you ask me, you could incorporate X into your Nightwatch.js tests. There's an extension for Nightwatch. The other Node.js application I'd like to shortly talk about is Pa11y and Pa11y. Pa11y is also in the Koali application we already talked about. It's a Node.js app, just like the other one we discussed. And you can use different parsers like X or the HTML code sniffer. But it also has actions for basic interactions on the page. You could, for instance, check an element, check a checkbox, click an element, or wait for elements to load, or change the state of elements. You can also use it with a task runner like gulp or grunt. And you can also set up continuous integration with Pa11y, which is a specialized module specifically designed for continuous integration. You could, for instance, parse sitemaps or run multiple instances of the tests. So it speeds it up a bit. And it's also possible to set a threshold before exiting. So you can say, well, we allow this or that error, and it still passes. When you're done developing the project, of course, all is well, but then the site gets handed off to the editors, and they can introduce all kinds of new issues in the content of the website. It'd be nice to monitor the accessibility of the site when development is done, and Tom will show you 2 applications which do just that.
Okay, thank you. So when we look at monitoring, we talked about X before. X also has a service to monitor your website. But beware, this is a commercial service, so there is a cost. And well, it uses the X library we've come to know and love now. And you can use it to periodically crawl your complete site. There is some basic scripting, as their website quotes, allows for scripting of basic user flows to trigger event-driven content and bypass user authentication. And there is a nice dashboard and some reporting. Another one we like to mention here is Pa11y. We talked about Pa11y before. They also have a monitoring tool. It's called Pa11y Dashboard, which is a free open source application, which is made with Node.js and MongoDB. It's really easy to set up. So it's also really handy for manager-like persons that want to monitor things. And it is easy to customize as well. You can either tweak the templates or use the web service to build your own app. Unfortunately, here is no crawling, but you could build something to do so. I forgot to mention something. All in all, Pa11y Dashboard is a fun and easy way to keep your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, I can show a small.
Yeah, we do have time, I think.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe my mouse will come back again. It's over there somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. Let's see.
There's Pa11y Dashboard.
So here you can see Pa11y dashboards. I've run it on the events.drupal.org website. You can click on. I've only run it twice, yesterday and today. There's no change in the state of the website. You
actually found a lot of errors, I see.
Yes, I found about 30. Well, Pa11y did. I didn't do anything. Well, you can see here what's the error. You can show some more details, so you can see the selectors of the offending object. You can download the CSV. You can download the data as a JSON file. And if you run this for a longer period and something actually does change, you get a nice graph here. You can load multiple sites in the dashboard. As you can see, it's real easy to add a new URL. Oh, pretty easy. It's a really nice application, if you ask me. Okay.
So I think we still have a lot of time.
Yeah. We went too quick.
But we can imagine there are some questions we might be able to answer now. Please do ask them. I think they will be showing up.
Okay.
I think I see a question here about it. Can you talk a little bit about your accessibility workflow? When do you use these tools during development process?
Yes, that's an interesting question. You generally use the Node.js applications, which you can use with your task runner when you're developing. And the browser extensions are, for us, more of a quick way to test something. But during development, you can use, we always use the Node.js applications, and also a setup where your code has to pass, has to be valid on the server. So we use the Node.js Go task runner, and also the continuous integration setup.
Okay. I don't see any further questions. I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. I know from our own projects, we also work with with a colleague of ours that has disabilities himself. Is it something you found out that that he was able to find out which could not be found by the automated tests?
Yes, there are lots of issues that can be found with automated tests, and it's essential to also test with a real person with disabilities. And the best way to have would be to have a couple of people with different disabilities. For instance, one person who's blind, another person who can't use normal regular input systems. So yeah, it's essential you test with real people as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a person with disabilities, but if you ask me, it's a good way to.
Okay. So someone asked, I think after I asked this question, so what do you manually test? I think we had some examples of what you can test and not test and what you should manually test, but maybe we can talk a bit more from our own practice. So what do you manually test and when in the process?
Yeah, that's a really good question to when in the process. I think when functionality is finished, that should be the time when it's tested, and also when the project is finished. So it should really be, like all tests, an ongoing process. Of course, that's not always possible, so then you'd have to test at the end. But in an ideal world, you test continuous.
Okay, so also when the work is done and you are in maintenance mode or
yeah,
monitoring mode.
Also then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what to test? Well, the easiest things are, well, just open the website in a text-only browser like Lynx or another one, or just tab through the website and see what happens.
Yeah. So do you recommend plugins, tools for editors? So what you see is what you get, plugins, image analyzer tools.
Yeah, you could use them, but really the editor should be taught that it's important to make sure the content they enter is accessible. So of course you can use plugins, but it should be baked into the consciousness of the editors. It's really important to have.
Don't you predict that it might be also automated, like we also have like search engine optimization automation? So
yeah, I saw a post recently somewhere, I think it was on Reddit, where somebody was starting to develop a accessibility plugin for Drupal, which scans your page after you've edited it. So of course that will happen, but we'll see.
Okay. I have another question. Two other questions. I will start with the first one. How much accessibility is sufficient? I realize 100% would be ideal.
Yeah, well, of course that matter. That's completely. It depends on what kind of website you make. When you have a government website, it's more important than when you have, for instance, a fan website of some cartoon or puppet show.
All right. Do you know of any guides or tools to provide to designers so they can keep accessibility in mind when designing UIs? Of course, we looked at the dev stack a lot now.
Yeah.
But what about designing?
Well, there's a really good resource is the Google Web Developer pages. They have articles and a couple of YouTube videos, which are really nice and where you can learn a lot, and it's pretty low barrier. So I think for designers, that's a really nice resource.
All right. I see some question. You can also try voiceover functionality already built into your smartphone.
Yeah.
What do you think of voiceover functionality?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. You can also use that on your Mac. I think you will have to hit the command button 5 or 6 times, and then it starts talking to you.
All right.
Which is a really cool feature when you're blind, but when you're seeing stuff, it can be pretty annoying.
Yeah, of course.
But for
is
testing,
it something like the paid services that also provide these?
Yes, there's also, for instance, Read Speaker, which is pretty popular in the Netherlands. We deployed that a couple of times. You can, for instance, say, well, you have to only read this or that div. So you have a little bit more control over that.
Okay.
Any more questions?
No. I will wait for some time for the last questions that might be coming in. But if there's not any more, then I think we can end the session. You can also, we can go over to the presentation. We are in the presentation. Maybe you can contact us. We are here at DrupalCon. You can also look at our blog. We actually did write some articles about this subject at our own blog. It's blog.finalist.nl. And some of the tools and extensions that we mentioned in this presentation are in these blogs. And there's the little box in the bottom where you can ask questions as well. So we were looking at
comment section.
The comment section. Yeah, the comment section. You know it. And we were looking at the comment section these days to be answering your questions as well. And feel free to reach out to us here at DrupalCon, and have a nice time.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.